welcome to a new week of Throwing Shade. Years ago, as I was in law school, I was in a class with a number of, bright, engaged, impassioned young potential jurists, and we engaged in a discussion about professional athletes. My proposal at that time, my contention, and understand that law school is done in a Socratic method, so there's an idea that's thrown out, and then, like ravenous sharks, everybody attacks it as vociferously as they can. So my contention was that professional sports was akin to modern day slavery. Now, needless to say, the reaction from that was quite intense. What I found is at that time, intellectual property was seen to have greater value than a physical property. In other words, intellects were to be valued, or at least believe themselves to be more valuable to society than athletes. Just brute monsters, essentially colliding over the course of an hour. What we discovered, though, is that sports is a multi-billion-dollar industry, and that often the notion of the nation ebbs and flows according to our access and engagement in sports. And no sport is bigger than professional football. Now, we know that there are racial overtones, there's shade in professional football. All the owners are white, most of the coaches are white, and the players are predominantly black. 70% of the NFL are black men who are working for the entertainment, essentially, of the masses. And I guess when I had the part of the argument was that football was like the modern day Roman Colosseum, and these men were gladiators who again, if you understood the nature of the gladiators, they didn't have rights either. They were essentially owned. So there was an effort to dispel that idea, and of course, again, the conversation was very engaged. So what I point to is what the NFL looks like on paper. Let's take Patrick Mahomes as a good example. We know that Patrick Mahomes was the 10th draft pick in his draft class. What sometimes is overlooked is that DeSean Watson was 12th. That the quarterbacks chosen before players like DeSean Watson and Patrick Mahomes were in some cases okay. Baker Mayfield, Josh Allen, who was exceptional, but in most cases, not so good. Sam Darnold, Josh Rosen, for example. So when you're looking to try to understand how black men in the NFL or outside of the NFL, or just looking at it as a spectacle, are perceiving it, you can take, for example, the latest movement for Matt Stafford. So Matthew Stafford, the quarterback for the Detroit Lions, wanted a trade. He makes it known to the team that he wants to trade. He makes it known to his general manager that he wants to trade. And everything is done expeditiously to facilitate what Matthew Stafford wants. And so the trade is made. He goes to the Los Angeles Rams. And he is, by all intents and purposes, in the position that he wants to be. However, when DeSean Watson makes the same petition, the owner and the general manager and the underlying staff explain to him or are being vociferous in their argument that he does not have the same right, that he cannot ask for a trade. And if he dares to ask for a trade, then they are going to do all that they can to make it as difficult as they can for him. Now, the skill set between these two quarterbacks, Matthew Stafford in his prime, maybe as a better passer than Deshaun Watson. But in today's NFL, Deshaun Watson's skill set should give him the power that when he articulates that he wants to be traded, that management should at least be kind and at least entertain that he is a man who desires to be somewhere else. He is not property. But the perception that when you look at the two, how is it that Matthew Stafford with not the same skill set, not the same degree of love in the organization is able to facilitate smoothly, and Deshaun Watson faces this recalcitrance? There are a lot of, when you eliminate, Alfred Tennyson would say, if you eliminate the impossible, whatever is left, however improbable, must be the truth. That all the other elements aside, essentially, again, it looks as if the NFL is not only has a racist overtone of an agenda in terms of its players, and not only that same overtone in terms of its coaches, and not just that same overtone in terms of its owners, but even when it gets down to position, there's still these overtones that black quarterbacks, as talented as they may be, do not deserve the same attention, the same commitment. But what do I know? I'm just throwing shade. Thanks for being with me again this morning. I look forward to seeing you next week.